Welcome back, everyone, into another edition of the Final Whistle Sports Podcast. It's Blaine Spencer from a new scenery, new office setup. So we're trying it out. First edition of the podcast with the new setup. But, we have our guy, Joe Ciccoletti, our lovely co-host, who's got his lovely Final Whistle background kicked in and always ready to rock and roll. Joe, how are we doing?
I'm good, man. Them jerseys are getting closer and closer to the rafters. I think you just keep putting them up higher to hope that they retire one day, huh?
You see that Spencer one? It's always a little bit higher than Mike because I
Yeah.
am better than Michael Jordan.
What Jordan jersey is that?
So it's his high school jersey, Laney High School.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you want to know, guess what the size of that jersey is? Guess what the jersey
It's
size?
definitely like 2XL, 3XL.
It's a triple X.
Yeah, it's a big
And I
boy. That
and I wore it. I threw it on the other day to just like because I can't technically be wearing jerseys at work, but I threw it on because I'm usually the one that kind of likes to poke the bear as far as I can go until I get in trouble. Walked into my
fair.
boss's office. I kid you not, it is over my knees and like I was wearing a dress. And
I wouldn't be surprised.
I walked in with a basketball and I went up to my boss. I was like, "All right, winner take all, 1v1 gets your office. Take it or leave it." He was like, "You turn around right now before I actually write you up for once."
No, yeah, you could definitely tell because it is like probably 3, 4 inches longer than yours. It's wild. All right, so it's this high school jersey.
Yeah, Laney High School.
You know where Laney High School is?
Nope.
I
You know
had a
where
feeling.
Laney High School is?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Where's
in
that?
Wilmington, North Carolina.
Well, I knew it was in North Carolina. I had no idea where it was in North Carolina.
Yeah, Wilmington. The only reason I actually know that is because we were down there for vacation a couple weeks ago. So
You just said that's a fun fact that you just learned. All
there's
right.
a lot of slam dunk to myself.
Fair enough. Speaking of basketball, let's dive into some basketball. And we're going to talk about the WNBA side as
Ooh,
it pertains to Caitlin Clark. Some fascinating things have been taking place with her. She's kind of getting physicality is kind of the word I would have to describe it. Maybe a little bit too much physicality. And she took a cheap shot the other night against the Chicago Sky as it pertains to Shady Carter, kind of just absolutely getting a bucket on her, walking over, started chirping her, then absolutely runs her over. Caitlin did sell it a little bit. She kind of flopped a little bit too, but definitely a blatant flagrant foul that was called. Um, this has kind of been something that we've kind of seen with the Indiana Fever as it pertains to Caitlin Clark, that teams are trying to be extremely physical and trying to, because the market around her was like that she's the next great one, right? And they're kind of trying to dial that back in. Hey, we've been in the WNBA for a couple of years, and that's not how this is like. You're not just going to walk in here and take over. Joe, your thoughts on how everything's been unfolding for Caitlin Clark and the specific situation with Shanette Carter?
well, I think it's more of a situation where like you're having a prestigious superstar come into the league that you haven't had this highly regarded player this high to what Caitlin Clark is. Of course, you've had other people come in that have been stars from the college making up into the year, but you haven't had a superstar, and the media finally is like behind a superstar in college through the WNBA to now get it to the point where it is absolutely blowing up. It's on TV all over the place now. Way more people are tuning in and whatnot. But and the flip side, I kind of do understand where these WNBA players are feeling some sort of way that man, she's still got to earn her stripes though, because I do respect that. I think you need to earn your stripes whether you're a rookie, second year, third year, or 10-year vet. It doesn't matter what you are. It was the same way as when LeBron came into the league. LeBron came into like the phenomenon that he was the next Michael Jordan to come out. Well, I hate to say it, probably that first year, I don't remember too much of it, but that first year, he was probably banged around a lot more. The NBA is a completely different ball game than what it was, back then. But he probably got banged around a little bit more and had to earn his stripes before what he is known now as today as the king. So, you know, to say, she's got to earn her stripes, absolutely. I completely do agree. However, like the cheap shots like this, maybe going a little more physical, I don't know if that's necessary. But on the flip side, you're going up against better competition, so it's going to look like you're getting beat up more. And I'm going to tell you the truth, you're going to get every one of these players' best defense ability when you go up against Caitlin Clark. It's just the competitiveness that's going to bring out the human instinct right there. So I just think it goes either way. I do really agree that you need to earn your stripes, but for what Caitlin Clark has done to the WNBA, and let alone, I think I saw the Indiana Fever ticket sales. Right, they were only having 7,000 to 8,000 people in the stadium, but as soon as Caitlin Clark came around, they're having 17,000 to 18,000 people in the stadium now. So she is doing wonders for the league, and I think WNBA players need to realize that, and I think they do. But in the same sense, it's a game and it's basketball and it's competitive that drives them out, and that's the reason why for a little more of the physicality and getting the best of their abilities.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, right, is where are they going to draw the line, right? Where will the WNBA step in? Because I think that's been a lot of speculation now with how she's kind of been treated the last couple games in particular, right? Where there's some questionable fouls that are starting to teeter on that line, right? And Sinead Carter was probably the first one that really was like, all right, that's a flagrant, not even close, away from the play. She hadn't even ball wasn't even inbounded yet. But I don't think the physicality standpoint, like you said, is something that's bad for the brand of the WNBA. It's She is bringing this WNBA to light even more than what they have been growing, because they have been growing the last 5 years, most definitely the last 5 years, right? And now you bring in someone, especially by the media, who's been proclaimed the next great one and potentially in women's basketball. And I think people are taking that to heart. And it's completely understandable that they want to be able to showcase their ability on the court against her. And they're going to give, like you said, give her their best shot as regards to being able to defend her, have her guard them. They want to be able to showcase their ability, because their Indiana Fever games right now is the market of the WNBA. If you look at the numbers, there was something that I saw, I think it was McAfee last week, right? From a TV standpoint, Indiana Fever games have, it's something ridiculous, upwards of 50% ratings in comparison to the team that won the title last year in the Las Vegas Aces. And the Indiana Fever are the team that are getting those primetime games on ESPN, ABC, the CW that the WNBA also has their games on, etc. Right? Prime Video. It's not these. It's not the Las Vegas Aces that are defending the title. The Chicago Sky that arguably have the person behind her in Angel Reese as the next star in that class, they're not getting as much time, but that was also the team that had the incident, which is why we're talking about it, right? So I think there's definitely a fine line. I don't think it's bad. I think it's great for basketball that she's the one that's being marketed. But I do think that they're taking that to heart a little bit, is that it's basically they think it's her league at this point already, when she's not trying, when she needs to absolutely go out there and showcase her ability. And she's had games where she's showcased it, and she's had games where she's been absolutely shut down and looked like the third or fourth basketball player on her own team, right? So there's instances in that regard, and I think she's definitely learning her way around. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing for WNBA. I think it's just the WNBA needs to be able to watch it a little bit more closely after this past incident that took place.
Yeah, I mean, and that's going to come, getting more calls. I mean, obviously, cheap shots unnecessary, not called for, and that's going to be called flagrant or whatnot. But you're going to get more calls as you progress along in the season and gain years underneath your belt. I mean, that's just exactly how the NBA is, right? For instance, you're watching a game with, I know for the Sixers wise, like 2 years ago when Tyrese Maxey's a rookie, he doesn't get the calls that he gets today now, being 3, 4 years in now at this point. Same thing with Joel Embiid. Like he wasn't getting all the calls that he gets now, just because also he's an MVP, All Star, All Pro, whatever it might be. So as you gain experience and start moving forward in the game of basketball, and same thing with WNBA, I think she will get more of them calls, and it'll continue on, right? But yeah, I mean, the media is going to market what they can. They did the same thing with Victor Wembanyama this year in the NBA. They did the same thing when LeBron came in. They tried to market as much as they could. They even tried to market as much as they could with Ben Simmons when he came in because he was supposed to be the next LeBron game.
Yep.
Andrew Wiggins, the media is going to try to get what they can out of the story and drain it as far as they can drown it down. And I think that's what they're trying to do. And the market for the WNBA, specifically Caitlin Clark, is so much more massive because the players there is so much more less than what we know as just an average fan of what then the NBA is. I think that's the difference maker there. So the media is going to try to take as much as they can out of Caitlin Clark, then and then try to find their next prospect. But if their next prospect might not be for a couple more years, who knows?
Right. And I think you kind of nailed the point there when it comes to the media. If they want to be able to help grow the game, they have to pick those one or two or three players that are going to be able to showcase the league, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Caitlin Clark is one of those players. You could probably the next person is Sabrina Ionescu, right, from the New York Liberty.
Yep.
Even though she's probably the second best player on her own team, right? Brianna Stewart has easily been the last couple of years the best player in the WNBA,
Mm-hmm.
and it hasn't been much to dispute.
Mm-hmm.
However, from a marketing standpoint, those two are guards. They have a larger brand notice as it pertains to with Sabrina being with Nike and Caitlin now getting her major deal. I can't remember with who off the top of my head, but those are the two faces right now. When you could look at it, arguably Brianna Stewart and again then Asia Wilson on the Las Vegas Aces are arguably the two best players in the WNBA right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the media's is taking that front of saying how can we approach it? We got to use the media component as it pertains to marketability, and those two players are getting that limelight over the two that are probably the arguably right now the best two in basketball.
Sure. Sure. No, I completely agree. Completely agree.
All right, so let's jump some gears to the other side of basketball, the NBA. The NBA finals are set. They debut Thursday. It is the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. Ironically enough, it is two teams that have been a part of some crazy, with some players that have been a part of both franchises. Kristaps Porzingis, as well as Kyrie Irving, are going to be playing against their former clubs, where they arguably had some success and then some kind of falling out as they were at both franchises. Fascinating to see. Celtics are right now a pretty overwhelming favorite as it pertains to spreads and winning the series. Right now, I think a lot of people have the Celtics in 5 or 6 games. Spreads have Boston upwards of 7.5, 8 points, which I think is extremely high for an NBA Finals in today's game. Um, let's break down how they got there. Boston swept the Indiana Pacers in a series that was, I think, really defined by game one. We kind of talked about it I think a couple weeks ago now, where Indiana threw away a couple of the games in the series, and you could have made the argument Indiana was up 3-1, could have been up 3-0 instead of they were down 3-0, and then Boston made the winning plays in crunch time over and over again. And then you can also look at it on from the Dallas side beating Minnesota in 5, same thing. Minnesota had the lead in every game with 6 minutes to go, and the Dallas Mavericks behind Luka and Kyrie basically stole that series in crunch time. Two series defined by crunch time, and they might have been five game gentleman's sweep as well as a sweep. The series were pretty tight, competitive games. However, crunch time mattered. Joe, your take on both series there as for the teams that made it to the NBA Finals.
I think, truthfully enough, the Dallas series, the better player led the team to victory. Luka was the best player on the floor, no questions about it. Had the most drive. had the biggest competitiveness out there to just go out and find a mismatch and get a bucket when they can. Um, it was just an incredible performance to watch, and what now Dallas has built now around Luka to get him to succeed to where he is now. Right, I still even go back to draft night when the Hawks traded him away and wanted Trae Young. Right, like would Atlanta, if they saw Luka be in the same position that they would be in where Dallas is in right now? I don't think so. It's not only Luka and what he can do. Luka's a great player. Luka's a top 5 player in the NBA right now. But also, you got to build a team around him. I don't think the Atlanta Hawks would have been able to do that and get them to a conference finals and now an NBA finals like the Dallas Mavericks are. You got a great owner, Mark Cuban, got a solid GM, and you built the right players around Luka Doncic to get you to the NBA Finals. Now, two conference finals in the last 3 years, and now you're going to the NBA Finals. But to go back to that, I think the better player helped propel the Dallas Mavericks to beat the Timberwolves there. Will the Timberwolves be back? Absolutely. They're a young team. They got a lot to build on still. Anthony Edwards is a potential superstar in the making right now and is moving forward with that. Rudy Gobert is a solid center inside as well. And then, they'll find ways. They got a nice little bench too as well, so they'll continue on there. On flip side, I mean, you kind of just knew that the Celtics were going to be the team, especially after game one. And the Celtics pulled out the win. Halliburton then goes down with the injury. It was going to be a struggle. I think the Celtics have had one of the easier roads to the NBA Finals, to say the least. It feels like they were getting like a limping team that come in every time they went to play between now the Bucks, the Knicks, and now the Pacers. And the better team won there, and the better players won there. With Tatum almost getting 30 points last series, averaging, and Jaylen Brown doing almost the same. But it's going to be interesting in this next series now with Kristaps potentially returning from injury, so he'll be back potentially, and I don't know if healthy is the word to use, but back in some sort of capacity to already add onto a loaded Boston Celtics team.
Yeah, I think from the Boston Celtics take, you are so right. They played Miami, right? No Jimmy Butler. Already right there. Then you go play Cleveland. You have no Donovan Mitchell the last basically 2.5 games of that series. Then Pacers,
Did
no
I say that?
Halliburton.
Did I say the Bucks? Oh, that's on me. I
You
forgot the
said,
Pacers played it. I might have said the Bucks. Yes, I meant to say Miami. That's what I meant to say.
yeah,
Miami, the Cavs.
I'm just rolling with what you're
I
saying.
appreciate that.
I'm gonna let the audience, reel you in on that one.
Yeah, yep,
I
that's
don't need
fair.
to say
That's
anything.
fair.
But yeah, so as it pertains to all three teams, right? And you got to also factor in, right? It's part of the postseason. Health matters. However, that still is a huge bonus for a Celtics team. And then you're now adding Porzingis back into the lineup potentially. I doubt he'll be a starter. If I were them, I'd bring him off the bench. You can't really mess up with what you've got right now because they're kind of rolling at this point. But
Mhm.
another added weapon, like you said. Then from the Dallas perspective, again, Anthony Edwards got absolutely outplayed by Luka Doncic. That was the series, right? It was between those two ascending superstars, and Luka rose to the occasion. Anthony Edwards had an okay series. He had a couple games where he was really good, and he had a couple games where he was honestly non-existent, right? So when it comes to that series, it was there. And then how Kyrie Irving has complemented Luka Doncic on this Mavericks team is unbelievable. And what you also have to consider what they did at the trade deadline, right? Bringing in PJ Washington, bringing in Daniel Gafford, because this was a team that was reeling at the deadline. And
Mhm.
Mark Cuban went all in. They made that decision. Let's go for it. They prided themselves on defense in the second half, and they've been the best team in basketball since those trades. So I think it's going to be really fascinating. I think people are really underestimating the Dallas Mavericks potentially going into these NBA finals. And it's going to come down to a couple of different matchups, which are going to be really fascinating to see because it's going to be really reliant on how the superstars show up. And that's kind of how the NBA finals has really been predicated on these last 5, 10 years. So,
Yeah, I think this NBA Finals is going to be very interesting. You're going to see a lot of superstar play. Um, a lot of big shots, of course, always is going to happen, especially with Luka. You're really finally seeing Luka Doncic like as the top 5 player in the NBA, right? Like for instance, a lot of people don't get to watch him more because he's more, I know he's in Texas, but more the West, so the East doesn't get to watch him as much. Uh, but you're gonna really see why he is the top 5 player in the league and why he's probably one of the hardest players to defend. Single, double, triple coverage, whatever, because of how well he is as a passer and a scorer, and able to, get all his teammates involved and able to rebound as well. Um, but with that being said, like I just don't know if they're gonna have enough to beat the Boston Celtics. I truthfully enough, Luka is going to be the best player on the court. I can't argue with you there. Out of everybody there, and Kyrie could be the second best player on the court. That potentially could be said as well. But all things considered, I just think the Boston Celtics just have so much firepower
okay.
between Tatum, Brown, Drew Holiday coming out, Chris Stapps now, like Derek White. Like you just keep having names on names. Like eventually you get to the point where Luka's gonna have to sit out for at least 6 minutes, right? Like NBA times 6 minutes. But in that 6 minutes, Celtics easily can go on a 10-0 run and could be the difference maker in every single game. And
Right.
that could be the game changer here. And I think that's where it's going to come into be. I think starters versus starters, it's going to be pretty dead even, I think, in my eyes. But it's going to come down to the bench when Luka or Kyrie's got to sit and they got to go to the bench now. And then the Celtics come in with just more players and more players and more players. And do I think it's a sweep? No, not at all. Do I think it gets to 7? No, I don't think so either. I think the Celtics win this. I think the Celtics probably win it in 6,
Okay.
to say it. I don't like saying that as a Sixers fan, but I think they get it in 6. I just think they're too strong, and it's not because Tatum and Brown are a better player, a better duo than Kyrie and Luka. It's purely because they just have depth on depth and just will throw firepower at you all game long.
So that's the matchup that's the biggest matchup for you is the bench
Correct.
in this series. You
It's
think
going
the
to be
starters are
it's
going
going
to
to
be
be that
pretty much,
six to
yeah.
ten, yeah, that 6 to 10 minute that somebody's going to have to sit out for Dallas. How is Dallas going to be able to um, just contain, just contain what is going on till they can come back?
Okay. That's completely fair. I am going to be on the opposite side. Surprisingly, I am taking the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games. And I'm taking the Dallas Mavericks because I think the Boston Celtics play too much isolation basketball. And we've seen that in this postseason when it pertains to certain games. They're ISO ball. They don't really run much of movement style of offense, right? Neither does Dallas. A lot of PNR more for Dallas than Boston runs because of just the creativity that Luka and Kyrie bring to the floor, right? Um, and I think the matchup of is Al Horford going to be able to play solid enough defense? It reminds me a lot of the Warriors Celtics finals a couple of years ago, right? And Al Horford became the player that got absolutely picked on in PNR, right? And as soon as he sagged off, Steph will shoot right over it. Same thing with Kyrie and Luka. They'll just shoot right over him. And if they are efficient from the 3-point line, then you have to blitz them. And that's where Dallas is extremely dangerous because when Kyrie and Luka are both on the court, that means one of them has the ball and they're playing 4-on-3, right? So I think that is something that's going to be extremely unique. I am fascinated to see the Kyrie Irving versus Jaylen Brown matchup. The person who wins as the number 2 version of the duo, I think wins the series, right? In my opinion, because I think Drew Holiday will be the one guarding Luka primarily, in my opinion, to start at least, just because Drew plays a lot bigger than his size actually is, right?
Mhm.
And in my opinion, he's the best perimeter defender in basketball. In my opinion, that's just my take on it. People could have. There's a lot of great perimeter defenders, but I have him as my top guy from a
Lance
guard
Stevenson would
standpoint.
definitely not abide by that, just FYI. So
Yeah, I know, 100%. That's fine. That's fine. And he can come on. He can come on if he wants to debate me on that. But when it comes to that, I want to see. And then, so Jaylen Brown will probably have Kyrie, right? And then Jason Tatum will probably have PJ Washington, is my guess, or Derek Jones, somewhere in that area. So I think Tatum and Luka are going to get theirs, whether they want it or not, right? Like they're just too skilled offensively to not get their numbers. It's just going
Mhm.
to happen. For them, it's going to be efficiency. And then again, the Kyrie Jaylen Brown matchup, they're probably going to guard each other. Kyrie has been a much better defender since the trades have been moved. Same with Luka, because they knew that they weren't going to be the defensive liability on this Dallas team that has been the second or third best defensive team from an efficiency standpoint. So he may not. He is, from a comparison, the weak link. So Jaylen Brown's probably going to try and post him up, and they've played together. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that all unrolls, in my opinion. And I think Kyrie will beat Jaylen Brown in that matchup. And that's why I have the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games.
So I want to go back to something because, like, obviously Jaylen Brown is 4 inches taller than Kyrie Irving. So you're saying to back down. I get that, right? That's fine. But let's put this into consideration. Luka and Tatum are both going to get theirs, and
Right.
we'll even say Kyrie and Brown are both going to get theirs.
Sure.
Who else after that, like in Dallas wise, is going to get theirs?
It's got to be PJ Washington, right? He's got to be that third guy. There's
I,
nobody else. From
that's what
a
I'm
scoring
saying.
from a scoring perspective, it's either going to be PJ Washington, Derek Jones. He's a streaky 3-point shooter. He's better at home than he is on the road. PJ Washington, he's a solid player. He was the number 1 option in Charlotte, and now he's the number 3 option. Crazy to think about. He was not really a number 1 though for Charlotte in that
Sure.
regard, a true number 1, but he was their number 1 in that trade. Um,
But like
it,
it again, like you're kind of relying now, like on PJ Washington, who's now is been playing solid in this playoffs. Don't get me wrong, his 3-point percentage has been outstanding in the playoffs. I feel like
sure,
every time I watch, I feel like he hits every three. But that's great. Now, but you got to stay hot. But now on the flip side, you got Boston, who's got now Drew Holiday, who, I mean, he should be a number 2 almost on any team. It feels like he definitely could be a number 2.
for sure.
You got Kristaps now coming back. Right, I don't know where he stands health wise, but Kristaps could damn be at number 2 on almost on all teams. Al Horford, who doesn't really get his own as much anymore, but he's still a solid vet to put out there. And you still got Derek White, who just dropped 30 points. What was it? And I know in the first round he did. I haven't kept up with him much in the third round, but first round he dropped 30 points. He had a decent game versus the Cavs, I know as well. Like there's other scores that they have, like where like I just feel like Dallas doesn't have it. It's Luka, Kyrie, and you get occasional PJ Washington.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a valid argument, right? And I think the biggest thing is that we kind of just have to see him like he had what 2 or 3. He's had 2 or 3 good games in every series so far. You get 2 or 3 games, and then Luca will has arguably won one by himself in each series. That gets you to 4. That's how I've kind of been adding it up, honestly. It's not a great method of doing the math, but it's been what's been working for the Mavericks all postseason.
And what do you want me to say about the Celtics? They give up one and then they win 4 straight. Like what else do you want me to
No,
say
yeah,
about that?
I'm just saying that the Celtics, you could almost book it. They're going to take a game off.
All right, so they win in 5. Like,
I think if you give it, and the one thing about as it pertains to Dallas, that they're actually healthy in comparison to the other 3 teams that they've played so far. Even though
okay,
Luka's playing hurt, of course, right? We all know he's playing hurt, but like it's still help. I think this is the first time they're going to see a team at full strength.
look, I agree. This is going to be the toughest team that they have played all playoffs long. But
I agree though. If the Boston Celtics play their A game over the Dallas Mavericks' A game, the Celtics should win. I agree with that. I don't think the Celtics will bring their A game enough.
Okay, but to go back to it, let's go back to like what you said previously is that about them playing healthy and this, that, and the other thing. It still doesn't matter to me because they dominated teams also in the regular season as well and dominated regular season teams that were at the top of their game as well. It's not like, okay, they had a cakewalk through the playoffs. I completely agree with you.
Sure.
But it's not like they struggle versus teams in the regular season. Dude, what did they have? Like 60 something wins on the season? Yeah, 64 wins and 18 losses. 18 losses. Blaine.
But if you
18.
look at it you can look at it on the reverse side though, that if you're looking past the All-Star break, Dallas is number 1. I'm pretty sure Dallas had the best record since past the All-Star break.
I don't really care. The Mavs almost doubled the amount of losses the Boston Celtics had in the regular season. Double. And you're saying the Boston Celtics is going to lose 4 games when they only lost 18 out of 82.
Yes.
All right.
The 70 I have got a great example as a fan. The 73-9 Warriors did it.
Yeah. I got another question for you because we're going to get off that a little bit.
Okay.
First question and then a follow-up. The first question, is Jason Tatum a top 5 player in the NBA?
No.
If he wins the championship, is he a top 5 player in the NBA?
Yes.
Okay. All right now.
Do you agree with that question? Do you agree with your own question?
No on the first answer. Completely agree with you. No. If he wins, I'm still leaning to no.
Well, who would you put ahead of him then? I have right now my top 5 would be
Jokic.
Jokic, Luka Doncic. Oh my gosh.
I'm going to tell you the truth. And it might be a homer pick.
You're putting a Joel Embiid.
Joel Embiid is unstoppable.
All right, if healthy, he's a top 5 player in the league. I agree with that.
If everybody in the world is healthy.
I mean,
Joel Embiid is still in the top 3 for me.
The next question is who would you take at 4?
Yeah, now this is where it comes into play.
That's where he gets gray, right? That's where it becomes 4, 5, 6, 7, where he's in that conversation.
Agreed. Because to me,
personally for me, I still have LeBron James as a top 5 player in the NBA, in my opinion. Right now, at 39, you can make that argument from a statistics standpoint. And when he's on his game, he's easily a top 5 player in the NBA. He takes games off in the regular season. You just know that from LeBron. I'd put him in my top 5 still.
Sure. Okay. I mean, you got a lot of names, right? We got Kevin Durant. He's still there. He's still Durantula. He still can go at his buckets,
KD,
right?
Yep. You can make that argument.
SGA has been playing incredible ball. Now, would I put him over Tatum? No, but I'm just putting the name out there, right? Gotta put the name out there. You said LeBron, right? That's fine. Why am I missing names right now?
Anthony Edwards, I think he's in that conversation with Tatum. I don't think he's there yet. I think
I'll still put Tatum.
I'd put Tatum over Edwards right now.
Jimmy Buckets?
See, now this is where it gets difficult, right? Like if we're talking postseason, 100% Jimmy Butler's in my
Oh,
top
I'm
five.
sorry. That's why I'm drawing a blank. I'm putting Giannis over Tatum.
Yep, Giannis would go in.
I'm like, hold up. I've got to
That's because
start
Giannis
thinking.
has been hurt. We haven't even been able to talk about him.
Yeah, that's the problem. So Giannis for me is at least four, right there. So that's four. And then that where Tatum slides by? Is Curry still up there?
See, right? There's a lot. But I think the argument for Tatum being in the top five gets solidified if he wins a championship. For Luka, he's already there, right?
Okay.
For Luka, it's almost you can make the argument that he was the best player in basketball this year if he wins a title, right? Over Jokic. So I think that's the biggest thing too. But like for me, like I like to see consistency over a couple of years. That's how I evaluate my top five. So I
But
would,
I feel like consistency wise, he's been right there.
right.
He's now what's the third straight finals? Or is this
Second, 2 out of 3, I think.
2 out of 3? Who made
Yeah.
it last year?
Heat. Heat beat them in the conference finals, remember?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So three straight conference finals or four straight conference finals and then two finals. Okay. All right. So I mean
Yeah.
the consistency wise there. Like you know what you're gonna get out of Tatum now at this point. Um I was just wondering with top five. I don't think he's in the
Yeah.
top five yet. If
No,
he
I don't have.
wins,
I think I think the debate gets serious for sure if he wins one, especially if they win and he's the MVP, right?
okay.
If Jalen Brown wins the MVP, then you're having a whole nother conversation, right? Then you're having the
Now what
argument:
if it's
who's the real alpha dog? Is it Jalen Brown or Jason Tatum on that team?
sure, but what if it's close? Like what if you have the same instance of what they had in the Eastern Conference Finals where they both almost averaged 30 points and almost identical stat line?
Right.
I'm not really gonna care
Who
whether you
wins
win an
the
MVP or
MVP? That's fair. I think that's also valid.
I don't care. But
Touche.
okay. Just want to ask. Had to ask. There's a lot of chatter going on that he's top five already. So
All right, now I have a question back for you before we jump to NFL stuff. Um, if Ky- what where if the Mavericks win and Kyrie plays well, how does this reshape his legacy now? How-
um I, I mean like what? Like if he's a Hall of Famer or not? Because I think he is.
well, I think he's a Hall of Famer now, but like how he's basically how he was the number two guy behind LeBron. He wanted out. Like, right? Every time he's gotten to a team, he's like, I want to do my own thing. And then I want to dip. Then he wants to do his own thing. Basketball is usually is not his priority. He'll
Sure.
did all that stuff with over COVID, right? And all of the protest stuff, which more power to you, right? It's your opinion, right? But you are getting paid to play basketball and you weren't showing up to work. And then on the flip, like Brooklyn, he asked for out, right? Boston, he asked for out. Like there's a repetitive steps that can continue to linger on Kyrie Irving, and you could say his legacy has been tainted based off of what's been happened over the last 5 or 6 years.
Uh, I mean I see what you're saying. I do, but like in the end, championships are always going to talk over anything, right?
Right.
If obviously if you win, right?
Do you
More would
think if he
I
wins, will it cover it up? Do you
will
think it'll
cover
cover
that
it
all up. I
over?
mean,
Will it
no, like
over? Yeah.
I think you're gonna always remember that when because lived through it, right? But I
Right.
think more what I think about is he is always going to be more a Robin and not a Batman if he wins championships.
I agree with that statement.
Like I'm trying to think of another player than Scottie Pippen because everyone wants to say it's always Scottie Pippen because it's Batman Robin, right? Because like Scottie was only really at one place. It was like the Bulls. I know he went to other places, but the Bulls was like his main place.
Sure.
So I'm trying to think of somebody maybe that won a championship here more and then was a number two option and one went here and was the number two option. Um, but like to me, it's more he could never win it himself, but he is a great Robin to the Batman. That's what I would say. Like in being the Cavs, and then also being potentially at Dallas, right? But when he was
Mhm.
at Boston, it really wasn't. It didn't work out. But then when he was also with the Nets, he was like what, second or third second and probably third option when James was there,
Yeah, you
and
could
it
make the option. He was the third.
really didn't work out there.
Yeah,
So to me, the legacy that I have for him is he's always more going to be the Robin, never going to be the Batman. But you got to give the guy credit because he still produced in big shots, big moments with the
absolutely.
Cavs, and then potentially now with Dallas too.
For sure, for sure. I think it's it feels like it'll feel like redemption for him. That's not the word you want to like use, right? It doesn't feel like it's a redemption story type thing. But like that's really the only word that comes to mind. It almost
I don't,
another
I don't
way,
think
another way is like his it feels like his career has now gone full circle, right? Right back to his days in Cleveland, where he went back to the Robin-esque and he won a title, right?
I don't see him more as like a guy that like wanted out. Like if I think of a guy like that, it's more James Harden. Like I
Right.
feel like every place James Harden has gone to, he has now want out. Like out,
Sure.
out, out, out. Where like
Okay.
Kyrie, like yes, he's out, but you also got to see his vision because he's also won championships.
Right.
I think
And you
that's like the
and you
difference.
have to and you have to understand the off the court stuff is extremely important to him. You have to take that in with you if you're
Sure,
going to bring him in.
sure. But
Okay.
like, I think
Yeah.
legacy wise, like he's just a
Done.
Robin. That's just what it is.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Shall we wrap up with some football?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So Joe and I, for this week, decided to come up. Actually, Joe can't decide to come up with the topic. I gave him an NFL idea, and he gave me a better idea instead. So we're gonna do our top 15 quarterback rankings. How do you want to do it? Do you just want to do go back and forth, your one, my one, and then just keep going back and forth, or do you want to do your 15 and then I do my 15?
Doesn't matter to me. Whatever you want to do.
All right, we'll flip flop so then we can talk about it a little bit. All right, you go first. Do we want to
You
go
want to do
back?
like
Do you want to do a
top
reverse?
five? Why don't we do top? Oh, you want to do a verse? All right, yeah, let's do a verse. I like that. I like
All right,
that.
let's do reverse. All right, give me your number 15. Let's do 15 to 10. Let's do that five, the group that you were talking about. So let's do that.
All right, 15 to 10. So 15 for me is Caleb Williams. 14
Okay.
is Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
13 is Dak Prescott.
Okay.
12 is Jared Goff. 11 is Jordan Love. And number 10 is Brock Purdy.
All right. Okay. Here we go. I have Caleb Williams not in my top 15. So I've got,
So he's 16.
yeah, he is 16. He's 16. 15, I'm gonna go with Kirk Cousins. 14 is gonna be Jared Goff. 13 is Tua. 12 is Jordan Love. 11 is Trevor Lawrence. And 10 is going to kind of be a little bit someone may be surprised about. Number 10 will be Dak Prescott.
Okay.
I think we kind of got the
I
same five, just in a different order, roughly. You've got Caleb and I've got
not at
Lawrence
all.
in there.
No, you have Lawrence and you have Tua. I do not have either.
Okay.
I
Is
have
two
them both
all right.
outside of both outside the 15.
Okay.
15, 16 is I would have them 16, 17, but they're outside top 15.
Why is Tua out in your list?
Tua hasn't really done anything for me.
Okay.
Like it like I don't get me wrong, like I like him as a quarterback. I think he's solid enough, but he reminds me of like what Jared Goff was with the Rams. He's just like a guy that's gonna get you to the playoffs maybe here and there, but um I think Sean McVay is a great head coach, and that's the reason why they got to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. But like, I just don't think Tua is that X factor quarterback that's going to get you to the Super Bowl because of him. He's gonna, if he gets to the Super Bowl, it's because of other folks around him.
Okay.
And Trevor Lawrence has just been so up and down. It's unbelievable. Like
That's
What
fair.
if this was me last year, I would have Trevor Lawrence probably damn near top 10 quarterback. But then like
Sure.
this past year, it's so unbelievable to watch. In one instance, it's a great game. He gets 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, but then the next game he has 1 touchdown, 3 picks, and 160 yards, and they get beat. So like what? Like I'm sorry, you got to find something here. Like the consistency factor of being a top 15 quarterback needs to roughly be there, and he's
Okay.
just not doing it for me.
That's fair. And I think in my argument, for me, I think Tua, it's his accuracy for me, regardless of how many weapons he has on the field, right? I think the numbers definitely speak more to what the weapons have, but I do love his accuracy and his ability to read the off defenses extremely quickly because he understands the weapons that he has, right? And then for Trevor Lawrence, like you said, hot and cold. But for me, the tools really outweigh his up and downness. He can make every throw. You have those moments where you're like, damn, he could be a top 5 quarterback without a question, right? But then he also has that throw where you're like, dude, what the frick are you doing? And I think also him being in Jacksonville with not many weapons tries to make him play a little bit more hero ball, right? So I think that's one of the reasons. And then you had Caleb Williams. Is that just based off of you think his projection of his talent?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
love Caleb Williams. That I think Caleb Williams has potential to be a top 10 quarterback after this year, but
With
that's
all the
just me.
weapons he got, he better be a top 10 quarterback after this year.
Yeah. Now I am interested. Like we'll get into Dak because I know we do have Dak, both of us pretty low than what the standard usually has it. But I'm
Yeah.
interested to see who you have off the list now because Lawrence is going to replace Williams for me, right? So like I'm just trying to think in my head who you have, and then you have Tua. So I wonder now who you have off that I have higher.
Who do you think I have off?
We'll get into it. We'll talk about it. I think I have an idea who it is, but I'm not gonna bring him up yet. Let's get into Dak talk because you got him what 11, 12? Would you have Dak?
I got Dak at 10.
Okay, so you had Dak at 10. I have him at 13. Um, for me, like I know the consensus has Dak in like top 10 no matter what. Like I just don't see it. Like I think he just stat pads very much so in what the offense is. He doesn't do anything, hasn't done anything in the playoffs. It doesn't show me to the eye test as well that he can take this team to the next level, I think, and truthfully, no.
Mm.
And being
I,
an older
I
quarterback now.
I think that's valid because that's exactly what my reasoning is. I
Yeah,
don't think, and I think for him, he's too reliant on one player. And I think you see that sometimes, and it's his Achilles heel.
sure, sure.
Like,
All right,
all right, go, you want me? You go next. Who you got? Let's
for
go. Do
me.
you want to do? Do you want to do 9 to 5 or whatever, and then we'll do a top 4? I messed this
Um,
up. It should have been 15 to 11. I screwed it up.
the 9 to 6, and let's go 9 to 6 then.
Okay.
All right, 9 to 6. So 10 was Purdy for me.
Yep.
All right. Stroud's 9,
Okay.
Herbert's 8,
Yep.
Stafford 7,
Okay.
and Rogers 6.
Okay. I've got the same 4 in a different order.
Okay. Foul.
Yeah. Rogers is 9 for me. I have him lower just because he's coming off the injury.
So that's who you took
Um,
off. I knew. All right. That's who I thought you were going to leave out. But okay, go ahead.
you thought I was going to leave Rogers out?
No, 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 no. No, now I know who you left
You
out.
know who I've left.
Yes, now I got it. So go ahead.
The guys in the Bay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Give me the
9,
rest.
9 is Rogers. 8 is Herbert. 7 is Stroud. 6 is Stafford.
Okay. So we're going to have to go back to it. Why do you have Purdy off the list?
For me, I am not as high on Brock Purdy as everyone else, in my opinion. I think you can make the argument with him and Tua, it's extremely similar, right? In comparison. Like I think that's the two that we would have had you have off and you have him on,
Okay.
and vice versa there. I have Purdy as 16, basically. He is the one that's right behind the other 15 on my list.
Okay.
I don't think he's a bad quarterback whatsoever, but a lot of people think he's a top 5 guy right now, and I do not have that yet. Let's give him I will give him he has earned my respect in 2 years, right? However, I think Kyle Shanahan has a lot to do with his success. I almost freaking couldn't say the word. And I think he right now is trying to I need to see him take that next step from a throwing standpoint. I think a lot of it is the weapons around him. It's a little bit more than it is in Miami, in my opinion, which is why I have him
So
now.
so I'm gonna have to play a little devil's advocate here.
No,
Obviously,
that's fair.
you
I
have
give
CJ Stroud ahead of him though, and you've only seen one good year now, CJ Stroud, and
CJ Stroud makes
same
CJ
thing with
Stroud.
Jordan Love.
Those
You've
guys
only
have better arm talent and they can make more all of the throws a little bit more than Brock Purdy can. Brock Purdy can't. Brock Purdy is reliant on his anticipation, and he arguably has. You can make the argument he has the best anticipation throwing ability probably out of the 15 guys, right? But I also
okay.
see from it, like for me, like I'm an arm talent guy on my list. Like arm talent plays a critical role in how I
But didn't you
evaluate
just
quarterbacks.
also say in the NBA rankings that you're a consistency guy, and Purdy now has had two very good years, where Stroud has only one, and Love has had what?
I don't count year one in my opinion because a lot of that he didn't really. No, but honestly, it was half of a year, right?
All
Jimmy
right,
Garoppolo did the exact same thing from a numbers standpoint. So you want me to
all
put
right.
Jimmy Garoppolo in there?
No, because he's not it. No, but like Purdy's at least taking him over the top and can get you 300 plus yards in a game if need be. I completely agree with you that the weapons around him is outstanding, and if you put any one of them but quarterbacks below Love, Goff, Prescott, Cousins, or Caleb Williams in that system right now, I completely agree. I think they could do as good and maybe even better, but
Right.
I can't say that because they're not on that team.
That's fair.
So that's why I have Purdy ahead of him,
Okay.
ahead of them all. So
And I take that argument a lot into consideration in my opinion.
okay, I just think that's what it is for me, and
No, that's fair.
and to have him off the list completely as a top 15 quarterback to make it to the NFC Championship game and a Super Bowl, but
Warranted.
but
Warranted.
but but I'm going to tell you this. Now I know who you have in the top five, and you have a guy that has been in the league, what, 2, 3 years now, and has had very similar seasons, but you have him in the top five, and Jalen Hurts.
I have Jalen Hurts as my 5.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. You have Jalen Hurts, who had an MVP season, and Brock Purdy had an MVP season last year, and they both have gone to the Super Bowl together.
I value Jalen Hurts' running ability. And you could see, no, I'm being
That
honest.
much? That much?
Yo, are you kidding me? I grew up on Michael Vick and RG3 as my 2 favorite quarterbacks. Like
Look,
that's just a personal preference.
You're talking.
You're talking to a guy that values Michael Vick, and I'm a Washington guy that was in love with Robert Griffin. Like for me, like from a quarterback standpoint, I'm just saying for me, I value Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson's running ability heavily. That you're a dual threat guy and you can showcase it running and throwing the football. That's it. That doesn't mean Brock Purdy isn't warranted. Like from 15 to 10, it was a coin flip for me. I'll be honest. It was probably a coin flip for
But
you
you have
too.
him completely off.
Yes.
That's what I
Well,
like.
you know
Don't
what? Honestly, I had him at 15A and 15B, but I wanted to make sure I only had 15 guys.
I only got 15 guys. I only got
Exactly.
15 guys.
So
I don't know what you're talking about, A and B. I got none of that. I only have 15 guys on here. But you got a guy that has went to an NFC championship game and a Super Bowl. And he's not even top 16 for you.
no, he is top 16. He's 16. We didn't do top 16. We did top 15. What number did you have Purdy at? You had him at 12, right? Or 10?
10. Already 10.
You value his last year a lot higher. You value his 2 years higher than I do. So that's plain and
Sure.
simple.
Sure. All right. Give
All
me your
right.
top five. I think we got this. We got the same people in the top five. It's just what order we got them in. So
5, Jalen Hurts. Who do you have at 5?
yeah, Jalen,
Okay, you do 4 now.
Joe Burrow.
4, I have Josh Allen.
Okay.
Number 3, I have Joe Burrow.
Number 3, I have Josh Allen.
Number 2, I have Lamar.
Got
Number 1,
Lamar.
I've got Lamar. And then number 1, you have a clear and cut Patrick Mahomes.
Uh, I got Michael Penix. No,
Hey!
no, I'm kidding. Yeah, I got Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, no, pretty standard there. Allen and Burrow to me, they can be switched all in now. I think Jackson though is a better than them too. Um,
I think there's tiers, right? I think Mahomes is ahead. I think Lamar is ahead. I think 3 and 4 are a gap, and I think 5 through 8 are about the same on my board at least. I had it was Stafford, Hurts. Um, oh my gosh, I already forget who I
yeah,
had
Hurts at 5.
at 5. Stafford at 6, and then I had
Herbert or Stroud was it? Because I know you have Rodgers at 9.
Herbert, yep, and then Stroud, correct.
The problem I have with Herbert is just like arm talent, everything there wise is great, but as a nothing in the playoffs.
Yep. And
So
I think I think that's the biggest thing for him, right? You could, from a talent standpoint, easily, I'd have him a top 5 from a talent standpoint.
mhm.
Arm talent, yeah, I would say easily top 5. You could make the argument potentially even top 3 from arm talent, right? So, but yeah, performance for him for sure. And then, yeah, a lot of the guys for me have all the tools in that top 10.
Yeah, I think for me it's just a Purdy one that I have a problem
Yeah.
with.
And
Everything
I
else,
think it's fair. I think it's a fair one. And I think for you it's the opposite, right? Like you have Tua out. And I think those are the two quarterbacks that get compared side by side because they both have outstanding talent around them.
sure, sure. All right, I'm cool with that. Next week, maybe let's do wide receivers because I'm interested to see who we both have because that can
Do we
go a
want to do
lot of different ways.
you want to do top 15 or we want to do top duos?
Not top 15. Duos are a little bit easier, so
Which is why I asked for top duos.
why? What do you mean?
Simplicity,
Nah,
bro. Simplicity.
nah, duos are too easy. You
I
gotta do
mean, hey,
top.
we can do that. We can make it a weekly thing now. Top wide receivers, then 2 top running backs, 2 top DBs, top linebackers.
Yeah.
Make it a
Well,
little make it a little series.
sure, sure.
Yeah, we can do wide receivers next week.
Yeah, let's do wide receivers because I'm interested to see who we both have as the top 20. I'm also interested to see who I want to pull out. So, because I'm big on some people and I know other people aren't. So, that's the big
You had
thing.
AJ
So,
Brown as your number 1, let's be honest.
no, I do not have AJ Brown as my number one, even though I do love AJ Brown. He's not my number one. So, but yeah, let's do wide receivers next week.
All right, lock it in.
All right, let's lock it in. So, all right, good discussion today. Good arguments. This is what I like here at the final whistle. I'll tell you that, folks. It's good arguments, good discussions. If you have any questions, let us argue. To have a good discussion about it, especially the Brock Purdy one that just fired me up a little bit. So I'm not going to be able to sleep for a couple more hours. So,
Yeah,
all right,
right. You're gonna
folks,
sleep like a log. Shut up.
you got that right. All right, folks, y'all have a great evening, great morning, great afternoon, whatever it may be, and we'll catch you here on the final whistle later on.